So thanks so much for having the time to speak of us. It's a great honor. With all this experience you have in making peaceful connections, we'd like to hear from you. What are connections, in your opinion?
Making friends, building blocks of friends, network of contacts around the world. Sometimes, for some people, for your personal fulfillment, enjoyment, learning. In my particular case, I enjoy meeting people, all kinds, from A to Z, from a street vendor to a king. Not all kings are pleasant, interesting. Sometimes a street vendor is more interesting than a king. But I did also strategically to build alliances for my country. And this is what actually helped us achieving freedom. We won our battle for independence, for freedom, thanks to the network that I built over more than 20 years around the world, particularly Europe, Japan, US, as well as in countries like Brazil or India, but even Indonesia. And as the world becomes smaller, first you recall the big event of the 80s was CNN. Now CNN is obsolete. The TV that you watch in America is famous CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, they're obsolete. I don't know of any young person who spend time at home watching the regular channels. Now they look at the news on their iPhone or on their Samsung or whatever. So the social media literally took over, at least among the young people, the young educated people. So, but back then, my main medium of communication with the world was trying to get into CNN, internet in the 90s. So the interconnectedness or connectivity, making the world smaller, making contacts with people easier. That's why you see this fantastic movement in Brazil right now, or in Cairo right now, or Istanbul. This would not be possible 30 years ago, because how you contact people, with smoke sign, with faxes. Back, I worked on telex. I don't know if you know what telex is. I work on fax. And now, you have it. So it's amazing, and how I remember many years ago I was in Madrid talking with a top Spanish politician. He was so frustrated. He said, why these NGOs, they have so much power? No one elected them, and they have so much power. I said, well, they operate in a little office with little budget, but they know how to work public opinion, media. And this becoming an incredible tool. So it depends the context you make for whatever. For some people, just to be contact with other human beings. For students, God, what a great chance. When I grew up, when I studied, I never dreamed of meeting a Nobel laureate. So the Lindau program is fantastic, unique in the world, so they should consider themselves to be so fortunate.
you just took us through history. You mentioned about the TV. You mentioned about your personal experience in making the world smaller. I think, how do you connect with people in this personal base? What's your personal strategy, your personal touch, or something in your personality that you think helps people to make these peaceful connections?
Well, I contact, I write, I respond to such a variety of people. Right now I am the special envoy of the United Nations Secretary General in a tiny West African country called Guinea-Bissau that is entangled with all the other problems in West Africa, with the drug cartels of South America, particularly Colombia, Bolivia, Peru. And I don't work only with the military there or the political leaders. I spend time going to the market, meeting with street vendors or youth who are into organizing sports events, cultural, film festival, etc., etc. For me, the human factor has to be always taken into consideration, at least in my work. So the Lindau setting for the youth, the students, academics who have the privilege of coming is tremendously enlightening. But at the end of the day, for me, what is really important is how each of us contribute to improving the lives of people in communities around the world. Of course, not everybody can have that role in directly dealing with people in the communities. So it depends on each individual how you can share this privilege of knowledge for the benefit of a wider community.
Very interesting. So I think, why is it so important to make connections? You start talking about life. Some people do it for friends. Some people do it for science. Why do you think it's so important? In your opinion, your personal statement.
Well, in this age of SMSs, of iPhone, internet, it's amazing how many millions of youth lose human-to-human contact. Like you have a young person sitting here where I am, there is another one 10 meters away. Instead of he or she both standing up and go and talk to each other, they are tweeting, they are texting each other. They have a much more excitement sitting in front of the computer than communicating with each other. So the social medium, IT, is a bit contradictory in the sense, supposedly brings the whole world closer, make the world an actual global village where you know each other. But at the same time, in reality, many young people, they are in their rooms, they don't go anywhere. And for me, as a human being, I enjoy, of course, my privacy sometimes alone, because we all need a time, space, in the tranquility of your room to think, to read. But as a human being, we like communication, we like touching, we like facing face to face. If assuming you are in a desert island, like Castaway, what's the name of that actor who was lost?
Oh, there's the movie. What's it called?
It's called Castaway. Anyway, this great actor. It's embarrassing that I forgot his name.
Tom Hanks.
Pardon?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. And he was there alone, and he was talking to a coconut, whom he called Wilson.
Yeah.
So he, in that island, he had to find a companion to talk to. And so communication is very much a human instinct. And if you don't communicate, you will go crazy. From then to learning, you do have to make friends, to contact people, to sit in a conference, in a classroom, in a discussion group, to grow. Where else you get your information from? And information just technically from a computer is not enough if it doesn't come also through somehow sharing a discussion with physical people, not through the screen.
And one thing, perhaps a final question. I hear you saying a lot about communication, and one thing, maybe it's my personal understanding, a lot of listening. You do a lot of listening because you're probably one of the first insights I had. You say, I talk to the guy in the street, I talk to the political guy in Spain. So you do a lot of listening. Besides that, there is anything that you think is the secret for peaceful connections, for this ability to make people come together?
It is always difficult to listen, because many people have the tendency of more talking or listening to their own voice, their own opinion. But I would say that successful leaders or learners are the ones who are very patient listeners. To learn in order to better communicate also, you have to know how to listen. Listening attentively, or not pretending to listening. Because some people, they are listening to you, but they are not actually listening. They are already in their mind, they are answering also their own doubt, their own questions, even before a person finishing his or her line of thought. He is already answering. So it is tremendously important to be a patient listener. I give one example of a political leader who impressed me the most as a good listener and a good communicator, and that's Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton can be in a room with 1,000 people, noisy, but if he's talking to you, he's listening to you. You are the focus of his attention. His eyes, his mind is not all over the place, no, he's focused on you. And he is a fantastic communicator because he is a great listener.
Well, thank you very much. Perhaps one final thought. We see about peaceful connections, sometimes you have to make new connections. That's how we end with slaves, that's how we got women's rights. It's a new connection, it's a new idea. How do you think these new insights come about? And perhaps a concluding sentence on that.
Look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or look at the many conflicts going on in Syria, for instance. In the midst of intensity of the war, of this conflict, so difficult to engage in a dialogue. I give a little example of how I managed recently a difficult situation in West Africa. One afternoon, It was a Thursday. I got a phone call from some political leaders, very angry, shouting over the phone against the president of that country, saying tomorrow there'll be a political crisis. I listening, and then I say, okay, can I come and see you people tonight? Of course they agree, yes. I went to see the president, I listened to him, then I went to see those political leaders. It was a Thursday night, and I told them, tomorrow, Friday, is a Muslim day. In that particular country, most people are Muslims, but there are Christians, there are Protestants, there are enemies. So tomorrow is Friday, a Muslim day, so why don't we all observe that day? No meetings, no fighting, no negotiations. And Saturday, Sunday, let's honor the Catholics, the Christians, also no meetings. Everybody calm down. Go to the mosque, to the church, or go to the beach, or your family. I don't want to hear anything about politics. Monday we talk. So they agreed. They had fun during the weekend. They forgot about politics for a while. By Monday, everybody was calmer. We were able to talk more rationally. And I found with them a solution for that particular potentially very harmful political dispute. So the question is, sometimes, we have to find time for dialogue. Wars must cease for a while, for a week, for 2 weeks, to see whether the different sectarian groups in Syria can somehow sit down and find a way out of this conflict. And you have a fantastic people on the Israeli side, on the Palestinian side. I've been there, on Israel, Palestine. But there is no ongoing dialogue. And I'm not talking about political dialogue among political people, leaders, but the common people. The prejudices you would hear among Israelis towards Palestinians, or Palestinians towards Israel, prejudice at a very strict level is perplexing. And that's why, because lack of dialogue, lack of communication, lack of listening, etc.
Thank you so much. I could keep you for so much longer, but I want to save your time too. Thank you so much, very much appreciated.
And I hope you will fix the problems in Sao Paulo, in Rio.
I actually think it started beautiful. I think it started legit, but now I don't know what's the next step.
Yeah.
But I think it started as a legit movement. Now I'm not sure, but we'll see. I think history is open.
It's interesting. Before this whole eruption in Brazil, I was thinking of writing an opinion piece, first for my own blog, about why countries, whether Brazil, Portugal, before it, Spain, and many others waste billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, on soccer stadiums, on sports events, when they always find excuses not to find money to improve education, health, infrastructure for their own country. Look at the stupidity of the way the Portuguese spent billions of dollars on soccer stadiums just to host the Europe Cup a few years ago. In Brazil, I read somewhere, as part of the World Cup, they're building also a soccer stadium in Manaus, where normally 600 people attend a soccer game. but they're building one to accommodate 40,000 people. And they did the same in Portugal. Look at Greece. They accommodated the Olympics many years ago. I didn't go to the games in Athens at the time. I was Prime Minister at the time, I can't say that. I told my Greek friends, sorry, I'm not going because you people are so disorganized. I'm sure I'm going to find myself at the airport with no one coming to meet me. So, sorry, I'm not going to the games. I will watch on television. But they bankrupted themselves to host the Olympics. Why can't people do things in a modest way? Of course, it's important to host the World Cup, to host the Olympics, but do it in a modest way, in the true spirit of sport, and not through corruption, megalomaniac, etc. This is the problem of Brazil, was of Portugal. And I was going to write that for my blog. And because leaders don't find money for education, and they don't find money for public transportation, but suddenly they find money for soccer stadiums. And so really infuriating. Then suddenly I saw what's happening in Brazil. 2 weeks ago I was thinking of these issues.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think about it because I think status legit, but then some people said, is it a military movement? Because I don't know if you follow, but the president, she went back in the military years in Brazil and she was investigating it, all the cases. So there is so much out there that it's hard to make sense. You have to have a really independent mind to make sense of everything that has happened. It was related to the World Cup, but it was related just with people. They go to hospitals, there are no doctors there. So there are so many variables. But it's been interesting to watch.
When of course Brazil has made a tremendous success over the past 10 years under Fernando Henrique Cardoso, under Lula. President Dilma is a good woman. She was a victim of torture.
Yeah.
And she has been only in office for 2 years. She has not been able to clean up corruption. How many countries where you have a president firing 6 ministers for corruption? I was reading, but I was impressed. And if every country had a president as tough as Dilma, there will be no ministers. Everybody will be in jail. But people are also right when it comes to the way the private sector in Brazil really make use of this World Cup, Olympics to enrich themselves. And it could have been an entirely private sector initiative to build whatever stadiums that are necessary. But in the end, because some political leaders are corrupt, politicians are corrupt, private sector corrupt, they corrupted the whole spirit of the games and created this discontent. And who is the scapegoat? The president. How can you blame the president? She's only 2 years in office. And she already showed how tough she could be. She fired, a year ago, some 6 ministers, but the fight against mismanagement, waste, corruption in Brazil or in Mexico, in China, is a huge challenge.
Sometimes my feeling is that I think corruption sometimes is an outcome. Since they know that if the justice won't work, they will do it. If they knew that the justice would work, they wouldn't do it. And I feel like sometimes the rich countries, they feel they're so powerful that the international law sometimes won't apply, so they feel that they can do it too. So I think
exactly.
The justice is not there.
Absolutely, you're correct. I give a small example. Many years ago, I was very impressed that a Swedish minister had to resign because she used a government credit card to purchase a souvenir in the duty-free shop, value $14, $14. She resigned over that. This shows the standards of integrity in Sweden or in Norway. In many other countries, government ministers misuse, steal millions of dollars and nothing happened. So the point you're making is that absolute impunity when it comes to top officials who are involved in corruption. Models of integrity of countries are the Nordic countries, Singapore, they don't tolerate corruption. But the United States is not immune from it. And the United States is not also a great example of integrity of fighting against corruption. And look at the way former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney, with his companies he was involved, the way they profit from the Iraq War. Is Dick Cheney in prison or investigated? No. But if something like that happened in Norway, Sweden, Singapore, yes, they would investigate and the minister would go to jail. In Brazil, things are happening. The justice system, beginning with the Mensalão case. And that is quite an example. But it shows the challenges are great to fight corruption. But when you have a civil society that is alert, this can happen, and so Brazil is moving in the right direction. And we all sympathize with the difficulties the government there is facing. The Brazilian people have been very inspirational. Mostly it has been non-violent. Very little vandalism. When you're talking about millions of people involved, with that level of vandalism that happened is nothing. So Brazilians are to be congratulated for the civility in the way they are protesting. Your Excellencies, it's a pleasure, it's an honor. It's not every day that I meet such prominent people of the media. And usually I'm interviewed by much more humble journalists. So today, for me, is quite a unique experience.
It's very unique to me because I'm probably one of the few guys that's not in chemistry. I applied, I did a PhD in psychology, and I'm very interested in peace psychology.
Peace psychology?
Psychology, because I started with performance psychology, and most of the work is either to Olympic athletes or many people hiring for the military to improve performance in the military, and I'm interested both in sports for life and also in diplomacy. So using communication skills, using goal setting skills to work on cohesion. And so when I had the opportunity when I know you'd be here, I said, let's reach out.
Well, since you have spent so many years doing a PhD on peace psychology, this could be a complete waste of time if you don't try to put it in practice. I'm going to call Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, to send you to Syria to apply your PhD experience in Syria.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I was about to ask you, but I would totally do it because it really drives me. I don't know, perhaps because I was in Brazil and I was in I went to English schools. I wouldn't do a PhD in the States, but I played soccer with people that are really poor. So I always, I had this touch. So I don't know why. So for me, peace psychology really drives me.
I would like to read your thesis. How long is it?
My thesis is 100 pages, and I don't mean to sound like.
And that is a doctorate thesis?
It's called Cohesion Team Mental. It won the American Psychological Dissertation Award. That's why I think I'm here. The target sample is sports, but basically what I try to say is how cohesion and this notion of team mental models. That's I know what you think and you think. I know what you know and you know what I know, and also collective efficacy. This notion that we have confidence together, how we can come all together in one model. And I did it with sports because performance psychology for sports, but it applies across. And then I won the APA, that psychological award, and that's why I think I'm here, because I wrote in my application, I want to see how can you use chemistry to work on team chemistry. That's this notion, but I don't need to just keep talking about my dissertation.
Thank you, Your Excellency.